Food is like software and your body is like a supercomputer. Your body takes food, breaks it down into different chemical constituents, and then that literally triggers different neurochemical reactions. One of the best things that you can do is do a food sensitivity panel. As you start to eat healthier, you do enjoy and crave the healthy food.
Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of The Big Break Show, and I'm here with my starving co-host, Mr. Jesse Vasquez. What's up, buddy?
I'm so hungry right now, but I'm so glad that we had this episode, man, because it shedded some light on getting shredded and clarity for just mental clarity, all this stuff. In fact, you and I are both going through something similar right now where you're getting your blood work done. I just got blood work done about 2.5 months ago, and you guys are going to hear some of the stuff that I'm doing, which I think has been super helpful for me. But man, Fraser is that dude's a, first off, you guys got to go follow him on the gram. Did I just call it the gram?
On the gram. So, I got to talk about this for a second because I've been reading this like life longevity books for like about a year now, doing the vegan thing, trying to change my diet, trying to clean up my health, right? And, I've always worked out and stuff like that. And Fraser broke it down into a science. If you can produce negative outcomes from your body from what you put into your body, then you can produce positive outcomes with what you put into your body, right? And it goes down to health, exercise, and the right amount of vitamins and supplements and stuff like that. And this dude is just an absolute genius. He's just an absolute genius at this. I'm glad he was able to come on the show because I've been trying to get him on here for a while. The last time I got him on, I think he had to reschedule because he had COVID or something. So it's been about a year now. I met him back in January. So we finally got to get him on. And I think this is going to be a great, we have entrepreneurs on here all the time. He's a true health master and entrepreneur. He runs a business. He knows what's up. So I know you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. And I'm really looking forward to getting you guys' feedback. So let us know what you guys think. Leave it in the comments. Obviously, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. We'll send them out to Fraser. He leaves some really good resources for you at the end. So just make sure you listen to it to the end if you want to get that, or fast forward, wherever you want. One thing I will say, disclosure, this is not, health advice, not nutrition advice. Consult your doctor before you guys do any of the stuff suggested on this episode. We just want to give you guys some insight on some really high level information and some good stuff from some really good entrepreneurs. So hopefully you enjoy the show. Hey guys, Rafa here. A lot of you guys have been asking me if I have a course, if I teach, if I mentor my short-term rental business, and the answer is I do actually. I just recently released my very first course. It has about 120 videos. If you're part of the monthly membership, we are adding 2 new videos a month in current issues or projects that I'm working on within the short-term rental business. And we do 1 monthly call live where you have access to me to ask me all the questions you want. So if you're interested in joining the course or if you want any more info, click the link below. It is application only. We only open it to a certain amount of students every month because we want people who are serious, who really want to be a part of this, who actually want to take their short-term rental business and grow it, or are starting from scratch and want to learn how to actually acquire properties doing rental arbitrage. If that's you, if you're serious and you really want to do this, click the link below, schedule a call with me or my team, and we'll get you going. Now back to the show. Fraser, man, I'm excited that you're on the show. It's been a long time coming. I know we've rescheduled a couple times. So before we get going and we start hounding you with questions, I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, what's your expertise, and what you're all about.
Yeah, man. First of all, thank you for having me on, dude. I'm excited. I'm excited to just drop a ton of value to your listeners and to just share, the importance of health relating to entrepreneurship, being a business owner, being an investor, and why your health has to be the foundation of everything that you do. So for me, got a crazy backstory. In my teens was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, severe social anxiety, ADHD. I was heavily medicated for over a decade. You name it, like I did it. The alcohol, substance abuse, like I didn't work out. I was super unhealthy. And I was a butcher as well. So I was in an industry that was just horrendous, very conducive with addiction. And I walked away from everything. So I got to the point where the pain was so bad, I knew that if I did not quit, I would probably take my own life. It was that bad. And I walked away from everything, went to see a psychotherapist, started working on myself, found this passion for working out, noticed how it would improve my state, went back to college to study nutrition and physiology, and the rest is really history from there. So now I'm at the point, this is back when I was in New Zealand. I'm from New Zealand originally, now been in the US for 11 years. And it's to the point now where I've worked with famous musicians like Chris Daughtry from American Idol, Danny Worsnop from Asking Alexandria, which is like a massive rock band, all the way to high level entrepreneurs. Obviously, Tim Bratz, one of our guys in Legacy Mastermind, he has been one of my students. And so I've gone from this place of like fixing myself, learning how to heal myself, and then teaching that to others, and having seen other people do it over and over and over again. And the value of, solid nutrition, using blood work, using the stuff that we'll talk about to basically create that superhuman 2.0 version of yourself. And so in many ways, it's just been this beautiful journey, roller coaster, massive background with all kinds of health issues. And I think the fact that I was able to heal myself and then replicate that in others has just been such a fulfilling process. So we can jump in wherever you guys want to start.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot to unpack there, and I know Jesse has a ton of questions. And before I let him take over the mic here, I want to jump in first. So, first off, kudos, man. Like going from the beginning to what you're doing now. I mean, we've met a person. I know you're shredded as hell. Like you're like all about fitness. I've tried some of the stuff that you've told me, and we had a brief conversation. So, I want to talk about. There's a big thing between mental health and physical health. Let's touch on that from the beginning, because I think that's going to open the conversation to everything else in terms of like supplements, the blood work that you do, the actual physical activity. But I want to know now how we already know it's important, right? Mental health is important. But how does it correlate? Like how do you go from being you need to work out to have better mental health? Like, can you touch on that?
I mean, this is huge. And this relates to, I always put this emphasis that obviously a lot of your listeners are entrepreneurs, investors, business owners, and they might be wondering, what is this health guy doing on this show where they're talking about business strategies and investing? And one of the things that I tell people is your ability to invest into yourself, into your own health, so you can be that better version of yourself. You're better at everything. Like you're a better parent, you're a better spouse, you have more bandwidth for more sales conversations. You're just able to show up to the meeting table and talk with potential investors and people from a place of like high energy and true health. And I feel like that does play a role in like your ability to create sort of opportunity. Now, the thing that I think was really, really important for me was understanding that food is like software and your body is like a supercomputer. And so I didn't make the connection early on because back when I had all these problems, it wasn't like YouTube and podcasts were just readily available. This is like 20 years ago. So it was in the infancy stages of a lot of these platforms. So I didn't have things at my fingertips like this podcast where I could just listen and learn and then go onto YouTube and just search keywords and just learn a bunch of stuff, or ChatGPT where I could just plug something in and get some answer spat out to me. So I did not understand how much nutrition would drive the chemical situations in your body. You got to understand, like, your body's comprised of brain chemicals, neurotransmitters. So like GABA, dopamine's a common one that people know, serotonin, acetylcholine. So there's neurotransmitters that act like braking systems and accelerators. So if someone, for instance, has a lot of acetylcholine, they tend to be more fast-paced and anxious. If they don't have enough GABA, the anxiety can get unmanageable. People that are dopamine dominant, for example, they lose that drive to like push. They're kind of apathetic. So the whole thing is that your brain chemicals are created and driven by, in many ways, your food choices. And so it's not just your brain chemicals, guys. It's your hormonal system. So your hormones from your testosterone, estrogen, thyroid metabolism, all of these things dictate your well-being. I mean, for women, for example, one of the big changes in their life will be when they go through menopause. And there's all the mood swings and the hot flashes and all the stuff you hear about. That is literally a byproduct of the chemical changes happening in the body. The same thing is true for men. Men, if they have low mood, irritability, anxiety, low libido, very often it is elevations in estrogen, low testosterone. And there are foods and supplements that you can literally add in and there's things you could probably remove to improve all of those chemicals. So it's almost like you're a chemical factory, and you can pull different levers to create different chemical responses. And when I understood that principle, I was like, I can heal myself. Like I can literally, if I'm capable of creating a negative chemical state, like depression or anxiety or ADHD or just not feeling good, if I'm inadvertently creating that state somehow, doesn't that mean I can actually create a good state? And so when I started to look at like my diet, was I working out consistently? Was I moving? Was I getting sun exposure? Was I focusing on my sleep patterns? And it was terrible, guys. I mean, my diet was like, even though I was in New Zealand, it was like a standard American diet. It was like straight up trash, so much trash. And I mean, I had terrible acne. Acne and pimples and rashes are like often a common outward representation that something negative is happening internally. And so if you're getting, if you're dealing with acne, if you're dealing with rosacea, if you're dealing with rashes, sometimes it means that you're having some type of inflammation happening inside, and your organ, your skin, which is a giant organ, is presenting to you the condition. And so I started to realize, wow, like, I would go to a dermatologist. Not once did they ever really tell me, what are you doing with your diet? They would just give me, like creams and pills and things. And it's the same thing with a lot of the conventional system. I'm not here to badmouth the conventional system. I think there's a time and place for certain things, but it's not about assessing the root and understanding where it comes from. It's just about saying, how can we give you something to mitigate the effect? So I think that for the listeners to understand that whatever you're feeling right now, whether it be ADHD, because I had ADHD, I was on Ritalin for 10 years, whether it be ADHD, inability to concentrate, whether it be mood swings, anxiety, in many ways, these things are driven by things that you're inadvertently doing that you don't realize that it's causing that. So there'll be things that you're doing in your lifestyle and diet that are actually manifesting those chemical responses. And there's things that you're not doing that you're not pulling to create a better response. So when I'm thinking about optimizing someone, I'm not just thinking about, what things to remove. I'm thinking about what things to add in as well. So we don't just want to remove stuff because then you're left with nothing. So we remove certain things, we add in certain things, and that chemical state shifts to the point where I've been medication free now for 12 years. So I was on Ritalin for 10 years. I was on benzodiazepines for 10 years. I was on lithium carbonate and Prozac for a decade. And now 12 years off all of those things. And again, I'm not here to shame anyone who's using medications. I'm not here to tell anyone that they need to do what I did. But I am here to say, like, food is like software. And when you can understand that your body takes food, breaks it down into different chemical constituents, and then that literally triggers different neurochemical reactions. And if you can start to wrap your head around that, you can actually engineer a state where you feel good almost all the time. Now, I mean, obviously there's going to be things that happen in your life that are emotional, that are outside that realm, but your ability to bounce back and your ability to weather storms. I mean, obviously as entrepreneurs, investors, it's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of plates you're spinning. It's a lot of pressure at times, especially depending on which way the economy is going. It can be very stressful. As you guys know, there's a lot of stress. And if you do not manage your health and your chemistry well, your lifespan, your longevity in this space, in this industry will be dramatically diminished. And so I'm all about how can you create longevity in this space where you can weather storms and you don't have a mental breakdown or your body doesn't break down and your immune system just tanks and you just get sick or you get cancer or something because you're so chronically stressed. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the whole principle is like food is like software and your body's like a supercomputer.
So, okay, there's a few things that I want to touch on that you said. It's funny because the reason I asked that question, I've been probably consistently about 3 months now working out every Monday through Friday. And something that I hated, dude, waking up early in the morning. I was not a morning person. Every day now with clockwork, 6 a.m., I'm at the gym, I get a workout in, I come back home. And I kid you not, dude, I'm constantly happy. I don't even get mad at things anymore. If something pisses me off, I'm like, oh, well, it is what it is. And so I started kind of putting two and two together. And I've known that forever, right? Like because I've always been somewhat healthy my entire life. I've been working out since I was like 14 years old. And so, but I started realizing, hold on a second, as I'm getting older, I start picking and choosing different foods because you can't really consume the stuff that you consume when you're a child. And so I figured one of the biggest thing I started doing was like reading on these like longevity books and like, extending your life and eating cleaner and living healthier. And, I started with like the How Not to Die book, right? Plant-based diets and how to self-medicate. And so when you brought up the acne thing, to get to my point here, I actually took Accutane about 10 years ago. And I had really bad acne. It's actually coming back now. So I kind of want to touch on that a little bit, that you brought it up now, just selfishly asking. Because when I took Accutane, dude, it was like miserable for about 3 months. Blood work every Friday, dry skin, ripped lips, and just like everything coming out of my pores. It was disgusting. Like I didn't even go outside for like 2 months because it was just so embarrassing, right? And then, but I was cleared for like 6 years, maybe 4 years, 5 years, I don't know, give or take. And then out of nowhere, it just started coming back. Now my face is a little bit clean, but I'm getting it like on my shoulders. I get some on my chest here and there. And so can you touch on that for a second? Just again, selfishly asking, like, how would you, number one, figure something out like that? What you recommend? Or, you don't have to go in depth, obviously. I actually rather have a conversation offline with you about this anyway, but can you touch on that for a second?
Yeah. So what I'm about to share with you is going to be relevant even if you don't have acne. Like if you have skin rashes, rosacea, like even like just rashes, eczema, anything, psoriasis, it's the same principles. I would tell you one of the best things that you can do is do a food sensitivity panel. Because, for example, there's a brand called Everlywell, and they do an at-home food sensitivity panel. So you basically just do a saliva or the little blood droplet, and they will test your system for a range of food sensitivities. One of the common things that you'll find when you're dealing with skin issues is that it's probably some low-grade chronic sensitivity reaction to a food. And so some of the common triggers that some people, I guess, know about, but a lot of people probably don't, is dairy and gluten. Dairy and gluten are sort of the common known triggers, but there are other triggers. Sometimes with your unique physiology, you might have a reaction to garlic. You might have a reaction to some random thing that's you're putting on your food every day and you don't even know you're doing it. And that in and of itself can really drive some of the pimples and the acne stuff. The other part of it is sort of stating more the obvious. Sometimes it is just legitimately just too much processed food and processed oils for your physiology. So someone might say to me, but I'm not really eating a lot of processed stuff. But for your physiology, it might be too much. And so you got to remember that too much or not enough is very subjective. What I tell people is try to get your diet as clean as you can. So when a clean is quite, a subjective term. So I say, outside of doing a food sensitivity panel, look at your plate. Does your meal have a series of foods with one ingredient? So brown rice is just brown rice. Broccoli is just broccoli. Avocado is just avocado. So like you want to try to have combination, because otherwise you're having burrito wraps and you're having things like, packaged things that have a laundry list of ingredients in them. Sometimes they will have things in them that are causing that inflammatory response. So I would say in summary, food sensitivity test is a really good place to begin. I would also think that getting a detailed blood analysis is useful because sometimes, depending on the person, you might be having things happening hormonally. There could be things happening with testosterone, estrogen, things like that. Especially that's why it's very common, obviously, for guys in their teens to experience acne because they're going through these hormonal shifts. And it's the same with women. When women go through menopause, it's a common thing is to get acne, hormonal shifts. So you might be experiencing some type of hormonal dysregulation from just lifestyle, stress, other factors. Maybe there's foods that we would need to add into your diet to kind of plug nutritional holes. So advanced panel with hormone profiles, food sensitivity test, and sticking to foods that are one ingredient as much as you can. I would say that's going to be the best place to start. And then obviously there's a whole other world outside of that of things that are coming in contact with your skin. So you got to remember that your skin is a giant organ. And so if, for example, if someone wants to stop smoking, they'll put a nicotine patch on their arm and the nicotine absorbs through their dermis, their dermal layers. So your skin's in a giant absorption site. And people I think they forget that. And so if you're using a lot of like like inflammatory body washes and soaps and laundry detergents and colognes and aluminum based deodorants and things, that can also be a massive factor. So part of it is like you need to not just clean up your diet, which is coming in your mouth, but your environmental diet. So maybe some of the things in your ecosystem, like there could be a laundry detergent that is having this reaction, and that's why you're getting it on your shoulders and back, because you're wearing like a shirt. That laundry detergent's on that shirt, and it's starting to have this chemical effect leaching through the skin. So it's one of those things where it's a little bit of a process of elimination, but at least if you have the data sets like that, you kind of know what you're working with. You're not just stabbing in the dark and guessing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So, dude. Okay. So, 100% makes sense. How do you track all this, dude? Because it's so much. Like, how do you keep track of all this?
So when you say how to keep track, do you mean like of like what to test, or do you just like keep track of like how
Yeah, well, no, yeah. Like, first of all, like, how do you make sure that you're eating the right foods? Because I eat out, like, look, I don't eat processed stuff, but I eat out a lot. But I eat out a lot of like restaurants. I don't eat fast food at all. There's no fast food in my diet whatsoever.
So I would say like what I found across the board is just some base principles that apply across the board. So obviously you can go in the weeds and get into the details of, you know, these little things and the blood work and the little numbers in the blood work. But generally speaking, there's some core principles that apply to everyone. And so what I found is that as much as possible, if you stick to these following principles I'll share with you, more often than not, you will see improvements. So the first one that I tell people is eat the rainbow, meaning as much as you can with your lunch and dinner meals, look at your meal. Does it have a green vegetable? Does it have a red vegetable? And does it have an orange? So eat the rainbow, because each colored vegetable is representative of a different set of micronutrients. Those micronutrients like vitamins, minerals, magnesium, boron, selenium, all these things. Those things, like for example, zinc, selenium, boron, magnesium, they all help with testosterone production. So if you're hitting a wide range of foods that give you a wide range of minerals and vitamins, you're getting all the substrates that you need to optimize the chemical nature of your body. So what I would say the first thing is eat the rainbow as much as you can. So obviously a food sensitivity test will give you some sort of determinations on what parts of the rainbow you should be eating. But generally speaking, with lunches and dinners, so I would do like, for example, like power greens or microgreens, like salad. I would do beets, pickled beets or something like that. Beets got nitric oxide producing effect in them, so it's good for blood flow. And I would do carrot. So or you could do a stir fry. So you could do broccoli, you could do carrots, and you could do red peppers. So you don't just have to do salad. You can do stir fries. You could do stews. But that would be the first principle, is eat the rainbow. And the second principle that I think probably is something that you could pay attention to is try to ask the chef or the restaurant to cook your food without oil. See if they can do it, because what you'll find is that unless it's a very high-end restaurant and they're using like an extra virgin olive oil, which you can ask, they might. But if they're just using low canola oil, or they're using safflower oil, or an omega-6 oil, these low-grade cooking oils that most places use are very inflammatory. And so again, it's not that one thing is going to be the death of you, but it's to say those low-grade inflammatory cooking oils will drive inflammation, which in a sense, acne is inflammation. So what I would say is try to get like your vegetables steamed. Try to see if they can bake your protein source as much as possible. And at least if you do the rainbow and reduction of oil, or get an extra virgin olive oil, those are two massive wins. Beyond that, I would say the food sensitivity test and at least trying to remove dairy and gluten for a couple of weeks to literally see what happens. I found that for a lot of people I've worked with, they have like a low-grade chronic sensitivity, like a lactose sensitivity. So when I, for example, get someone to swap out their whey protein with, like one that I use a lot is called Kachava. So Kachava protein, it's like a superfood protein blend. So you've got adaptogens and greens and reds and all this stuff. When I get them to swap that out, they notice changes in their digestion. They were like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was getting kind of bloated before. And I tell them the bloating is usually a sign that something else is happening negative. So if you get digestive issues, it's usually a sign that chemically something's off. And very often, if you have digestive issues, there's going to be something happening cognitively. So whether you realize it or not, you're probably getting some degree of anxiety or mood swings or aggression or something happening mentally you're not aware of if you're getting bloating and digestion. So it's almost like a canary in the coal mine. It's saying there's inflammation here, guaranteed there's going to be inflammation in all these other sites. So I would say those are the first two things. The other thing that I find really useful while I'm traveling, and I've used this with musicians like Chris Daltrey, especially a lot of my guys, they're kind of like you. They travel a lot, mastermind, speaking, traveling to like assess properties, that type of thing. There's a really useful app called Happy Cow. Happy Cow is great. It was designed for plant-based people, but it gives you all the options. So if you go to Happy Cow, for instance, and you are plugging in your zip code wherever you are, it's going to give you everything within a 0.5 mile radius of you out. So like it gives you it's like a blast radius. You got this spot 0.7 miles. Here's a spot 1.2 miles. And what it typically does is it will find foods that are not just plant-based, but healthier in general. So it's going to give you your nearest Chipotle. It's going to give you your nearest Sweet Green, different poke bowl sort of places, certain types of Mexican spots. You can fit criteria with Mexican food to make it work. But I find that using Happy Cow is a good way to plan some of your options. I always tell people, if you have the ability to have some decision-making process over where you eat, try to be proactive. For instance, like when I met you out in South Carolina at Tim's Island event, I had already done the due diligence. I'd looked ahead. I saw what was in the area for me, and I actually bought some food with me because I was driving. So I bought some food with me, but I also found the best spots to get food from. So I knew exactly what I had to do. Now, it seems like a little bit of it can be a bit of a headache for someone who's a beginner. But once you get these skills down, guys, it's effortless. It doesn't take a lot of effort to sort of do this stuff. So I would say those suggestions are probably some of the best ones to keep things simple, because I know otherwise you can get all caught in the weeds and you get up in your head about all the details. And I tell people all the time, don't step over dollars for pennies. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to health, they do that. They major in minor things. They worry about these little nuances, but they're not doing basics well. So I hope that helps in terms of those suggestions.
A ton, man. And Jesse, one last question, and then you can have the mic, brother. I know I'm hogging it here. I'm like Fraser's like me, talking to me nonstop, dude. So, okay. So really quick, let me tell you, those were great, right? One thing, and just a quick thought on what about tracking your food, like writing down what you eat so you know what you're doing. How do you feel about that?
Yep. Yeah, I think there's definitely a time and place for that. One of the things that I tell people is that if you really, outside of doing a hair mineral analysis to see literally the mineral content in your body, if you didn't do that, or you wanted to have a grasp on what you might be missing in your diet, tracking on MyFitnessPal or Chronometer for like 3 to 5 days to get a baseline. So say, for instance, you track for 5 days. And then over that average of the 5 days, you can see if you're consistently missing certain things. So you might find that consistently your omega-3s are too low, or consistently your vitamin D is too low. And in that case, you can troubleshoot those things with diet, with lifestyle. I would say from a place of being mindful about your food choices, it can be a good mindfulness tool. I personally don't even track at this point. I haven't tracked for about 10 years. So the condition that you've seen me in on social media, that's me not tracking, but it's me using intuitive eating processes. So, for example, one of the intuitive eating processes I use is metric measuring cups. This is when I'm at home, obviously. When you're traveling, when you're eating out, it's different. But when I'm at home, I'll use metric measuring cups, like 1 cup of this, half a cup of that, 2 cups of this. And I literally just watch how my body reacts. So over time, if I'm doing a certain amount of each thing in cup form, if I notice I'm getting a bit fluffy, I'll just pull down some of those cups. If I notice I'm getting like really lean, but I'm feeling kind of depleted, I'll increase the cups a little bit. And it's a very liberating, very simple method to use outside of calorie tracking. I do think though there is definitely a time and place for tracking, from a place of like determining like if you're consuming too many calories, are you missing certain vitamins and minerals in your diet, but also from a place of then you can see, like you said, all the foods you are eating. So you get a good glimpse of what are my common foods, and then you could probably pinpoint, like Jesse was saying, like an elimination type diet. So you just remove one thing. If you try to remove 10 things at once, you don't know what's working and what's not. So part of it is like remove one thing, test it for a few days. Are you noticing like improvements in digestion? Are you noticing improvements in sort of mental clarity, cravings, that type of thing? And obviously to see improvements in skin, it's a slightly longer duration. It'll take a little bit longer, but I do think removing one, like the main triggers first, and then obviously playing with that. But I do think there's a time and place for counting and tracking, but I don't think it's necessary or mandatory to do that to get really good results either.
Got it. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, my turn, Rafa. Thanks, buddy, for letting me.
I got more, so you better jump in, Jesse. Yeah, I was like, you better jump in.
Well, I'm going to speak for myself right now, and everything you're talking about, I literally have been going through over the last 2 months. I went and seen a functional medicine doctor, just so everybody gets back context, and I talk about this all the time here. I've suffered, Fraser, from anxiety and depression since I was 15 years old. I'm talking like anxiety where it was hard for me to go out places, like just super crippling anxiety. I've had stomach issues my entire life. Finally, probably about 4 months ago, I was like, the doctors were all telling me the same thing. I would literally go to the doctor and just be like, dude, my stomach hurts. You got IBS. And finally, I was like, I joined this group called Go Abundance. And there's people that are familiar, like kind of what you're talking about. They're like, hey, go see a functional medicine doctor. So I go see this doctor. This doctor draws my labs. It was like $700 or $800 for me to pull labs. They checked my minerals. They checked everything. There's two things that were super noticed in that lab work. One of them was I had an overgrowth of yeast called Candida. And the other one was my testosterone level was super low. I was in the hundreds, which normally I think optimal is like 700 to 900, somewhere right around.
That's very low. That's
super
very
freaking low.
Yeah.
And then number 3, my vitamin D level was like super, super low, which is common in most Americans, even if you're out in the sun on a regular basis. So those 3 things alone, the doctor was like, if you want to get better, like you're going to have to do this. And I was always opposed to like, I don't want to take testosterone. I don't want to do that. Like, that's unnatural. But then I'm just like, dude, I want to feel better. So I started injecting 0.25 milligrams of testosterone over the last 2 months. My diet, dude, I have not eaten one single thing. I'm lying. I had a drink the other day, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. I haven't had any gluten, my meals are just super clean. Candida, just so you guys know, any type of alcohol, any type of grain
feasts on it.
It's literally like sugar. It'll feast on it. So it'll grow. It'll continue to grow in your gut. And it's like most people that goes, your body fights it off. Mine hasn't. Dude, since I started testosterone, since I started taking vitamin D and I've eliminated my diet, I'm a completely different person. Like 100%. I'm not even lying. Like my drive's better. I feel better. Like my brain. And this is the thing for me that's the most important. My thought process and clarity has like 100% changed. 100%. And I think that alone just, again, most traditional medicine doctors are not ever going to do. In fact, they're not going to run labs like this. They're not going to look at minerals. They're not going to look at Candida. They're not going to look at any of this stuff. They're going to diagnose you and say, you have IBS. Sorry, dude. Take this. This will make you feel better.
Jesse, most of these doctors are like, they just put Band-Aids on it. They don't repair the issue. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound.
I think the problem with with medicine today is that they're not diving deep into there's so much freaking technology out right now. It's insane, dude. Like you can literally swab your mouth, send it off somewhere, and somebody can tell you what your ancestry diet looked like, and it's probably a diet that you want to follow. So like we live in an age to be able to do stuff like that. Granted, you have to have money to do these things, which is, we talk about entrepreneurship. We're lucky to have access to be able to pay for these kinds of things. Most people don't. So I'm coming from a place of privilege right now to talk about this. But dude, just over the last 3 months or 2 months since I've been on this diet, literally everything's changed. And one thing, and I wanted to bring this up too, alcohol is like, it's one of those things where like, I feel like we all want to be healthy. It's the one thing that we know causes the biggest amount of issues. And dude, I feel it. Like I wear one of these rings here. It's a sleep ring. Do you
notice your heart rate spikes up when you drink?
I had one drink. Yeah. And my sleeping heart rate was like 58. After I had one drink that night, it was literally 70, dude, the whole night.
Yeah.
So
That's literally physiological strain on your system. You'll see spikes in heart rate, drops in heart rate variability, blood pressure goes up. It's literally like your body's literally dealing with a poison. So, I mean, kudos to you, man, for going through this journey and doing this stuff, because I truly understand what it's like when you unlock those doors and start to change your life. It's so liberating, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that like you go to these doctors and they tell you like, oh, your stomach hurts. Oh, okay, well maybe this is it. Go get. I mean,
Here, take some Nexium.
yeah. Oh, take Pepsid or something, and it's like, dude, I don't have heartburn anymore. I was having heartburn, and I literally didn't eat bad. Like I didn't think I ate bad. Like Rafa, like I'll go out to eat. I think I'm eating healthy, but in reality, dude, I cook all my own meals now, and I'm eating shit that was like I would never ever think about eating. But now I'm just like eggs in the morning. You know, I can't have any starch. So it's literally just like vegetables. That's it, dude. And meats that are organic and clean. And dude, I feel like a totally different person. But the problem with this is like most people can't eat like this because it's not cheap. That's the first thing. Second,
well, one of the things I was going to say quickly was people don't realize. Then I just want to touch on this before I forget. Vitamin D is massively connected to brain chemistry and mental health and immune system. So if you're someone who gets sick a lot or you have mental health issues, you getting your vitamin D checked was perfect, because not only does vitamin D help boost mood, that's why in summertime when you're outside more in the sun, you feel better. Literally, you're getting more vitamin D synthesis. You feel better as a byproduct. That's where seasonal depression comes from. And the other thing is that vitamin D is a precursor to testosterone. So if someone has low testosterone, vitamin D actually, if you get that vitamin D up, it's going to help with the testosterone levels if you chose to not go the TRT route. So everything's connected. So I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was a really good point that you made.
Yeah, one of the things too is like, how do you feel about testosterone? Like, 'cause I was super against it, but even Candida, like that is that blocks part of you being able to build testosterone. I like my sex drive, all that stuff was great. Like I already felt pretty good. So now I'm like, I feel like I'm in high school again, dude. Like I just feel like it's a totally different.
You're gonna pop up your new babies, Jesse?
Yeah.
I wake up in the middle of the night. I can't pee, dude. I gotta wait like 5 minutes to go pee. If you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's just different. It's just a different feeling, dude. It's.
So I think the first thing is like definitely with the candida or any type of like overgrowth with your gut, you need to heal that because that will affect your ability to absorb nutrients. So like if someone, this is the key that, you know, the listeners need to understand is that you might be taking the multivitamin or eating the food, but if you have some type of overgrowth or some type of gut issue, which you can get tested, your body won't be absorbing as much of the stuff as it could be. So you're eating the thing, but you're not getting the absorption. You know, people say, oh, you are what you eat. I would say it's a step further than that. Like you are what you absorb. So I think the first thing is like that is the root of it. When it comes to testosterone replacement therapy or hormone replacement therapy in general, I'm of the nature that try to troubleshoot everything as much as you can through diet, through all these other means. I think there's a certain process that you would walk through, typically of making sure you plug all the nutritional holes, making sure that your zinc and your boron and your selenium and your magnesium are good, optimizing your vitamin D, you know, trying to make sure that you're sleeping well. You're doing a lot of the typical stress management things. You're doing consistent resistance training. I think that there is a time and place for hormone replacement therapy if it's done the right way, which I'll tell you now, most of the time it's not. Because I have a lot of knowledge in this area anyway, because I had to figure out all my problems. Like I had to understand the chemical nature of the body. So I had to go down all these rabbit holes and learn about all these things. And one of the biggest challenges that I find with a lot of men that use testosterone replacement therapy is that typically the dose is too high. So the doctor will prescribe them, say, for instance, 200 milligrams per week is like a stock standard dose. That is usually going to make you super physiological. So meaning it's almost like a mini steroid cycle. So the side effects of running a dose that high are going to be you need to use an estrogen blocker to control estrogen. The estrogen blockers are called aromatase inhibitors, and they actually cause bone loss long term. So that's not something that you really want to be using long term. And I'll talk about how you can not use that and not have the extra aromatization with estrogen. Increases in blood pressure, and prostate hypertrophy. So prostate enlargement, increases in blood pressure, increases in LDL, small particle cholesterol. So what I'm saying here is that those are the side effects that you can experience if you don't do the protocol right. But you can avoid all of those things if you do it the right way. So peace of mind for you, Jesse, is that as long as you do it the right way, you don't have to deal with those consequences. That's why it gets a bad rap, because people talk about, oh, it's going to give you a heart attack and this and that and the other. And it's because a lot of the dosing is too high. The dose frequency is too irregular. It's like one shot a week. So you think about it from a place of, the person takes their shot, it goes up, 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 and then over the next 6 days, it comes down, 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 down. A normal human body is on a pulsatile sort of frequency of every day, pulse and testosterone, pulse and testosterone, pulse and testosterone, every single day. Same with like estrogen, same with growth hormone, everything. The way you minimize side effects is you want to mimic that pulsatile nature as closely as you can. So if you were to take like a daily micro shot, mimicking that daily pulse, you will literally remove all the side effects.
What about the cream? Like, what about the cream stuff? Because that's a daily supplement.
Yeah. So again, the cream, each application has benefits, pros and cons. With the cream, I would say that in terms of dosing, you could probably get reasonably accurate with the dosing. You do need to be careful if you're around like your kids or your wife, because there's been stories of guys that use the cream and they came in contact with their wife and she started getting facial hair. Literally, but dude, it's things like that. So that's obviously what you have to be mindful of. And then there's pellets. Now, pellets, basically you're down one end of the spectrum, you have user-friendly nature. So, a pellet once every 3 months is very user-friendly. A cream is pretty user-friendly. Taking daily micro shots is not very user-friendly. But down the other end of the spectrum, away from user-friendliness, you have accuracy. So the more user-friendly something is, the less accurate it is. If you want maximum accuracy, it's usually not the most user-friendly thing. So it just depends on your personality. I would say that I've got students who use the cream just because they don't like the idea of having to do daily micro shots. And we sort of monitor their numbers. We'll run their bloods. I'll ask them questions, relating to their libido, relating to water retention. Water retention is a common one. If you notice that you're getting water retention, often it can be a sign that blood pressure is elevated or estrogen is aromatizing too much. And so I tell people, even though the range is like 300 through to 1,197, I tell people you probably want to be around like 800. Yeah. 800 is good. 800 is like the Goldilocks zone where you're getting a lot of the therapeutic effect, but you're not getting the side effects of it being too high.
I want to ask you this: is it possible for somebody to get to the 800 range without that therapy? That therapy?
Yeah.
I was told and I know a bunch of men that are taking this, they're in their late 40s or 40s.
Yeah.
And it's pretty common. A lot of people don't talk about it.
It is common.
It's more common than people think, and I don't have any problem talking about it. It's something that I'm working on to I feel better, and I think that at the end of the day, that's what we want to have. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the negative parts that come along with it. Is it possible for a man to do that testosterone or to get to those levels 800 consistently without having to do any supplementary things other than working out, doing legs?
It's a good question. Yeah. And so I would say it is case dependent. If you were like 100 or 200, that's very low. What it tells me is that just probably from chronic stress over time, your body sort of just slowly sort of shut down. I would say that you could probably, if you were like at 150, I would imagine that if you threw a lot of the stuff at it that I know, you might be able to get to like 500 or 600. So you might, and again, I'm just guessing, you could be a hyper responder and everything that we do, you just like optimize. I would be focusing on like vitamin D status. I would be focusing on magnesium, zinc, boron, selenium as like the 4 minerals. I'd be focusing on compound lifts with your weight training. I'd be trying to look for ways to optimize sleep more. Can we get more deep and REM sleep? I'd be looking at, there's obviously certain supplements and things like that. But I would say that there are people that would be fortunate enough where you could. And I would say it's worth for anyone listening who's sort of, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're like, oh, should I do this? I would say try a process of elimination first. Like try to figure it, try to optimize the sleep first. Try to get the vitamin D up first. Get all those other minerals in first. Clean the diet up. Reduce alcohol. Even like too much cannabis consumption can affect testosterone levels. And so people don't realize that, maybe the therapeutic, cannabis they're using for their pain or their anxiety is smashing their testosterone into the dust. And so part of it, and if that's the case, sometimes it's like you've got to weigh up the odds and say, what's more important to you? Do you want to have the therapeutic effect with the anxiety reduction with smoking this this cannabis, or do you want to have better testosterone, or are you okay with using TRT because you want to keep using the cannabis to help quell the anxiety? So there's no right or wrong answer to that, but I do think it is possible. I have seen in blood work, people really have very profound improvements via just like nutrition and basic supplementation. And there are people that have like a real resistance, just depending on, how long the pathologies, the conditions have been going on in their body. Some people don't respond as well. So you might have been one of those people, dude, where we could have thrown a lot of stuff at you and you may still not have responded. And in that case, I would absolutely tell you from like a mental health perspective, because one of the things that I agree with you, I think that, TRT gets a bad rap because it's sort of associated with like steroid use. But I would say that the mental health epidemic that we are seeing, especially with men, I think is in part because most people's testosterone is way too low. And, they sort of think of this thing as like roid rage, like, oh, it's going to make you really hyper aggressive. Not if it's like optimal levels. If it's optimal levels, it's actually going to, if it's a therapeutic dose, it's actually going to improve your temperament. So if you're really low, you're going to be way more irritable and grouchy and anxious. So from a place of like being a better husband, a better father, a better business owner, a better operator, like this stuff is so important, So I do think you'll start to kind of get a picture with my perspective on things as context. There's a time and place for many things, but what is the context?
Yeah.
So, Fraser, there's a bunch of stuff that you said here, but the one I really want to touch on is the supplements part. So, I'm taking the Life Force, the Peak NMN, the Rest, and the Defense, right? Because I've messaged you about them. Ever since I started the Rest one maybe like 3.5 months ago, on and off, but now I've been taking it consistently because it puts me to bed and I wake up feeling awesome. Like I feel great, dude. I get the higher sleep and I track it. I've been tracking my sleep for probably 6-7 months now. Just so I can see where I'm at. And you're 100% right on the alcohol, by the way. Whenever I drink all night, my heart is just going crazy. But so how do you feel about actual supplements? Like, for example, I also take the powdered greens to replace because I know my diet isn't good on greens, right?
Yeah.
So I've been taking the powdered greens. What do you think of all that stuff and taking it? Because I haven't done any of the blood. Like I want to do the blood thing. I'm going to do the sensitivity thing now that we've been talking about it. I haven't done any of that, but I've been taking these supplements. And overall, I've been feeling better. But like, do you recommend people to take them? Is it something that they should be doing?
I think, again, context. So I would say definitely there's a place for them. I think that supplements, supplementary to your foundation of your diet. So especially if you're someone who's traveling a lot and you're eating out a lot and you're trying your best to sort of manage everything, but it's not perfect, doing like a greens powder or a reds powder, or, in the case just before I said the Kachava, where it's got greens and reds and mushroom adaptogens and MCTs and all types of stuff in it. So from a place of like, pulling one lever to check off like 10 different boxes, that can be useful. I do use a range of supplements, but it's more so because it's not because I'm missing things in my diet. It's because I want to just massively optimize how I feel. I don't, obviously being in this space, guys, I'm not just content with being good. Like I want to feel really good as much of the time as I can. And I want to maximize everything. And so, for instance, the Life Force supplements that I'd suggested to you, I like those because they're very focused on longevity and optimal health in general. It's not like a pre-workout supplement with a boatload of caffeine and stimulants. There's certain supplements that I'm not fans of. A lot of the typical fitness supplements are ones I don't use. So a lot of the typical fitness supplements, it's going to be like your pre-workouts, things like that. I'm not a massive fan of those things. I think they just cause a lot of stress in the body. But I am a fan of, the NMN, the Life Force Peak NMN, like thing, and sleep blends like Life Force Rest. It's got, if you look at it, it's got a lot of things in there that can help with like blood glucose control, all kinds of stuff, immune system. So it's one of those examples where I would still say try your best to make sure you're checking all the boxes with your diet as much as you can. But I do think adding strategic supplementation in can be useful. I mean, one common supplement that has been around for forever is creatine. And most people think of creatine as like a muscle building supplement. But in more studies in recent times, creatine was shown to be very useful for brain health. So like your neuro regenerative processes. So I use 5 grams of creatine per day, not for the muscle building component, but for the cognitive benefit. So it's an example of like there's a time. I feel there's a time and place for a lot of things, basically. And I think as long as you're trying your best with your diet, you can plug a lot of holes. Like greens powders, I think, are a useful tool. I think that way you're getting at least some of the things in that otherwise you wouldn't be getting at all.
Rafa, just eat vegetables, dude.
Dude, I can't. Like, I'm always on the go so much that, and even if I try, like, I don't eat enough vegetables. I already know I don't.
But you were vegan. How do you not eat enough vegetables?
Well, I was vegan for a long time, but that's why. Like, dude, it's just like sitting here and cooking big meals and stuff like that. It's not me, and I know that. Like, I understand that of me, right? And so my thing was like replace it with the greens, and I've done a lot of research. Like, I do the Enzo Superfood greens, and I feel good about them. But there's something that you brought up that I'm really curious about, because I used to take creatine, and it was actually for muscle gaining. This was back in high school. And I tried it in between, for 18 years, but I don't know if I'm allergic to it, but it makes me break out in acne.
Yeah.
Like hard.
Yep. That's one of the things that you'll find is that it's not just foods, sometimes different supplementations.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be something in the supplement. Like, someone might be using a supplement, but it might be like the capsule that's coming in. You might have a reaction to the gelatin, or like there could be something else you're reacting to that's like a delivery mechanism for the supplement. But this is a perfect example of how there is no one size fits all, and everyone has unique sensitivities. And the fact you were able to pick that up and see that is exactly how you want to think about everything. So, if someone says to you, use this supplement, it's the best thing I've ever used. Well, it's the best thing they've ever used. It could be, you could get bloating and acne using it. So it's I truly think that it's a great example of biofeedback. Your body is trying to express to you something that is happening inside that is out of balance. And, if we can learn to interpret those signals, obviously the skin one's an obvious one, because if you break out, like for me, if I eat too much processed sugar or junk food, 2 or 3, 4 days later, I break out. It's like clockwork. It doesn't happen the next day. It's usually like 3 days after I'll start getting like a random pimple here and there, because my skin's usually really clear. So when I do get a pimple, it's obvious. And it's like clockwork. Every time I consume something that's processed sugar, and it's usually like processed sugar with some fats in it, or, it could be like a cinnamon roll or a donut or anything, I'll break out. And it's such a powerful biofeedback response and reminder to me that externally something has happened as a byproduct of that internal inflammation. So I just wanted to point that out, because I thought that was kind of interesting that you mentioned the creatine with the skin.
Yeah, that's why I stopped taking it, because it got really bad. I've been trying to figure out what makes me break out, because I've been breaking out a lot lately. There's times where I go really clean, and then there's times where I start popping acne. And I've narrowed it down to 2 things. I don't think it's the dairy, because I've gone dairy free for a long time. It's either the sugars, like you said, because dude, I'm a sucker for like a good pastry, man. I can't, and either that or the alcohol. That's making me break out in acne.
It's different. I would say those 2 are very likely, especially. I mean, you can't rule out the alcohol. And remember, alcohol is a form of sugar as well. Yeah. So, I mean, I've noticed the sugar thing is big, like pastries, cakes, cookies, things like that. That really does a number on people's skin. So I would say that's definitely one of the things that I try and encourage people to do is try to find healthier upgrades for some of those foods that maybe aren't as healthy. So a healthier upgrade would be like if you went to Whole Foods and there was like an organic thing that had, like monk fruit sweetener, and it had like healthier things in it. It's still like considered sort of more junk, but it's got healthier ingredients in it.
Healthier junk, yeah.
And it's healthier junk. And so obviously it's a spectrum, you know. Would it be as good as eating Brussels sprouts? Obviously not, but it's better than eating the straight up junk. So like that's where I think a lot of people can get wins, where rather than eliminating the thing completely, find a healthier upgrade for that thing. That is like, for example, like that's, you know, Dan Tollins, one of my guys that, you know, we've done those types of things with him, like healthier upgrades for everything.
What about instead of eating a whole Cinnabon, you just take one bite and that's it?
You could probably get away with that. Again, it would just depend on the sensitivity. I would say that most people do not have good portion control. No. They struggle. Like I would say most people with one of the biggest challenges is the portion control component. It's like they're either going to go all out and have like their body weight in cinnamon rolls, or they'll have like nothing and they'll abstain from it for, you know, months.
I would much rather not eat it than just take a bite of it.
Really?
I'm the same, dude. I would rather just, I would rather just not have it and not even get the taste.
Yeah.
And I find, I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. I've noticed that when I don't eat a lot of junk food for a while, it's almost like my body doesn't crave it as much.
That's very true.
And then when I have it again, it's like it spikes back up, and then all of a sudden I crave it more. So if I give myself time to not buckle to the temptation, I notice that my cravings for the sugary stuff goes way down. And that's where you want to be. You want to get to that point, but it takes a little bit of time, but you will get there if you stay the course.
Can I tell you this, dude? Like after I started this diet, I'm eating buckwheat and shit. Have you had buckwheat, Rafa?
Yeah.
Dude, it's fucking tastes like dirt, but it's healthy. I've realized, dude, over the last, and people are probably going to hate me for this, like food's not probably supposed to taste that good. Like food's not supposed to taste good. It's a fucking nutrition thing that you have. It's a supplement for your body to nourish.
I struggle with that so hard though, guys. Like really quick, Fraser, I struggle with that so hard because man, like I live for food, dude. I love to try food. I'm a foodie. Dude. It's like when I travel, I plan out places to go eat so I can try new foods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that, you know, I definitely think that you can have both. And what I've noticed, and this is my own experience and obviously working with a lot of people, I've noticed that as you start to eat healthier, you do enjoy and crave the healthy food. You know, like for me, for example, there's a poke bowl spot called Sweet Green. When I was out in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, filming with Chris Daughtry on his music video, I was there for a few days with him before his music video to get him like peaked, like dialed in for his video. And there was an Equinox gym right there. And then there was like a smoothie place, and there was a Sweet Green. And Sweet Green has these sort of, build your own macro bowl type things. And I freaking love that stuff. Like I genuinely enjoy that. So like I got it and we took it back to the hotel room and I actually enjoy it. And so that was not the case early on. Like early on, you feel like you're depriving yourself when you're not eating the trash.
If you have one bite.
At a certain point, you start to kind of almost shapeshift and appreciate the way it makes you feel. And that becomes like the reward. And the more you do it, the better, the less, anxiety you have, the better energy you have. You start to look better as well. The skin clears up, and all of those things become the reward mechanism. So for me now, I don't have an issue fighting myself with the diet because I've shifted my entire reward system. And that, I honestly think that's possible for anyone to get there. But you do have to just like persist through it and find the healthier upgrades for things. I think you can still be a foodie, Rafa, and travel, but find the best healthy upgrades for a lot of the things.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And start there. Yeah.
So it's funny because the stuff that you're talking about, the healthy reward systems, I learned that from Atomic Habits, how you start setting your habits and you always, you reward the good habits get rewarded by one bad habit. So like, for example, like for me, when I used to be addicted to video games, right? And so now I don't play video games anymore at all. But for a while, it was like, okay, if I want to play 1 hour of video games, I need to read like a book maybe, right? And that would be my reward. I get through it, I can play a video game. And you can, the reason I bring this up is because you're talking about it in the dietary system as well, right? So now the way I look at it, for example, I went a month without eating any sweets prior to my birthday. And I said, okay, the reward's going to be 1 day of just nothing but pastry eating on my birthday. And so I did it. I went a whole month straight, no pastries, no sugars, nothing. But then on my birthday, I went. And to be honest, the day of my birthday, my girlfriend took me out to Porto's down here. And she's like, we'll get whatever you want. And I'm like, I honestly don't even want to go there. I was like, I'm over it now by this point.
Yeah.
And it was because 30 days, like to go to your point, the less that I have it, the less that I crave it. So,
and I tell people, pay attention to how you feel on the day and the day after you doing that stuff. So like, be very aware of your anxiety levels, of your mood. How sluggish do you feel when you wake up the next morning? You probably have massive cravings. I notice that when people deviate and they just gorge or binge and they eat a lot of processed stuff, you would think that cravings would be diminished because they got so many calories, but it actually magnifies cravings. So very often you wake up and you're super hungry. So you're super hungry, you got cravings, you feel anxious, your energy's low. Just pay attention to those feelings. And what I do is I tell people to take like a mental timestamp where sit in that feeling and just experience it. So then next time when you're in a place where you have to make a decision of, am I going to eat that pastry or not? Go back to that feeling that you had the next day and ask yourself, like, can I perform like in my job, like with all the deals I'm doing, with all the stuff that I'm working on right now in my business, in my social media, can I afford to perform that way? Like, can I afford to perform with low energy, low mood? If I can't afford to perform that way, what do I need to do instead? And I ask myself that question because I don't want to show up to a podcast interview like low energy with brain fog and can't get the words out properly. And that will happen if I eat like a whole bunch of crap the day before. So when you future pace how you want to feel and use those biofeedback cues you experience as like a mental timestamp to then course correct in the present moment, it's so empowering because you all of a sudden realize you have control over your brain. It's not like your monkey mind is controlling you, you know?
A final thought here before we get to our closing questions, but I'm so glad you brought that up, Fraser, because I've never actually sat in the moment while I have that feeling, but I've gotten to a point where like certain feelings I just don't ever want to feel. For example, the 2-day hangovers. Like I just lose 2 days of work. Now when I go out drinking, I'll have 2 or 3 drinks, maybe 4 max, right? I used to love old fashions. Old fashions make me feel like shit the next day because all the sugar. I don't have them anymore. I just whiskey neat, simple to the point, right? One of the reasons why I don't smoke weed or do any of this cannabis stuff is because it just slows me down and I feel like shit. And I don't ever want it. Like it's not how I want to feel. Same thing now that you brought up the pastry thing. I never thought about it, but like it does lead to it because there'll be times where I wake up the next day and like when I'll have fried food the night before, like let's say I go to like Cane's Chicken Fingers or something, right? The next day I'm just starving. And I'm like, why am I starving? I usually don't eat breakfast, you know? So anyway, we're getting to the top of the hour, man. And I appreciate all the knowledge you're dropping. It's really good.
Absolutely, guys.
I want to ask you the question that we ask everybody. Now, normally I give people a heads up about this, Fraser, but I want to give you a heads up because I want to see what you got to say. So being that this is called the Big Break Show, I want to know, what was your big break? Do you have a defining moment that kind of changes your point of view, your life, your perspective, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of my big breaks in more recent times was I was at a festival and I bumped into the musician Chris Daughtry's wife. She came up to me because she saw me and she's like, "Oh, like, are you a bodybuilder?" She's like, "My husband is into fitness and, you know, like, I'd love to connect you." At the time, I didn't know who he was. And then after the fact, I was like, okay, this is like Chris Daughtry from American Idol. This guy's like pretty damn famous. And I got a text message from him later in that day. He's like, "Hey man, it's Chris." Like, and this was probably 5 years ago now. And since then, we've just built this epic relationship. We're like brothers at this point, and we've been through so much together. But I feel like that was a big turning point in my life because not only was I introduced to someone who's like a sort of like a famous person. So I got the insight to see the behind the scenes of like their life, but he introduces me to like other people in that ecosystem. And just from a place of like social proof. I mean, obviously you can work with like, you know, good people who are just stay at home mothers and you changed their life, but it's not going to have the same sort of power punch as if you say, you know, I'm Chris Daughtry's, coach, especially with the music video that he just did, and everyone was talking about how he looked like super jacked. And obviously that was drawing a lot of attention to me. So I would say that was probably the biggest turning point in recent times. But early on, the other biggest turning point was the day that I quit the butchery. Because the day that I quit the butchery, guys, I didn't even hand in my resignation. I just had enough. I left a note. I put my uniform there and I left. And like the rest is history. Like I could have stayed there and just suffered through it, and I might even be a butcher to this day. But I burned the ships. I absolutely burned the ships, and I had no plan B. And this is where I landed.
I love it, man. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah,
thank you, guys.
That's freaking awesome, man. I have another follow-up question. Well, not necessarily. I'll ask you at the end. But one of the other things that we have here on the show is an actionable step that somebody could take after listening to this episode. So what would that be, Fraser? What would you give to the folks?
Yeah, so I mean, what I would say is we could probably put this in the show notes or wherever you want. But I have 2 free downloads, and actually, Rafa, one is the Superhuman Travel Protocol. So it's like all the hacks that I've figured out from dealing with people traveling on the road into this free blueprint. So I can give you the links for that, for the Superhuman Travel Protocol, and I have a Superhuman Blood Work Blueprint. So if someone's looking for, how do I get the blood work done? Where do I get it done? What do I ask? What does it all mean? The Blood Work Blueprint is that one. And if you're someone who travels a lot, the Superhuman Travel Protocol is the one for you. So those would be the 2 places I would say to start, because then that way you're actually getting like something tangible that you can deploy, and it will give you some results. So I would say that's definitely the 2 that I would suggest.
Those are right up my alley, dude. I'm in. So, okay, last question, and then I have a follow-up question, actually, Jesse. So I'm gonna ask 2 questions here. But
oh, come on.
Sorry, buddy. It's just been such a good conversation that my brain's like spinning, man.
I've loved it, guys. Yeah, I've loved it.
All right, Fraser, what's the best advice you've ever received?
I would say one of the things that stuck with me the most was I had a friend tell me once, he's like, if you don't set a clear vision for your life, someone else will set it for you. And so, if you didn't get into this like real estate space or have this vision for your life to build this lifestyle, you're going to have an employer setting the vision for you. And again, it's not anything against 9-to-5 jobs, but I do think you have to have a vision for your life. Otherwise, someone's going to set you one for you. And half the time, you're not even going to realize. So setting a vision.
I love that, dude. I love that 100%. I think that's great. How can people work with you, or do you take clients on? Do you any of that stuff?
Yeah. So, you can find me on Facebook, Fraser Bayley. I'm on Instagram at Fraser Bayley. We can obviously plug my blueprints in the show notes. We will. So that will be in there. I would say, just contact me on social media, and we can have a conversation. So I have my Superhuman Upgrade, which is like my 4-week signature transformation course. You can rinse and repeat the cycle over and over, but it's like the first 4 weeks. It's really, really effective. So that would be like something that they could get if they wanted help. But I do also one-on-one stuff. So we can talk about elite level coaching and stuff like that too. So if anyone has questions, you're more than free to reach out.
I got a question. Cold plunge. Yes or no?
Yep. I'm a fan. Like if you'll see me at times as it's coming into winter here in the mountains, I jump in those mountain streams.
That's awesome.
It's funny. So I've taken pictures. I've done videos before where it's like snowing, and I'm like down there with like my little spandex on, jumping in the stream. The only thing I'll caveat is that you don't want to do it right after a workout. If you do it right after a workout, it can blunt muscle protein synthesis. But if you do it before a workout in the morning early, or you do it way later in the day away from your workout, I think it's very, very useful for injury prevention and recovery, and dopamine production.
Inflammation too, right?
Yep. So I think the combination of cold plunge and sauna are really useful for people.
Crap. So you know what, Fraser? Really quick before you wrap it up. So I can't have a cold plunge in my house. So I just take cold showers every morning. But now I've been doing it after a workout. Is that bad? Because they're cold. They're not like freezing showers, but they're cold showers.
Cold, Rafa. It doesn't get cold in Southern California.
I would say like, it's not, if it's just like a cold shower, that's probably not bad. If it's like a cold plunge, like, 30, like 2 degrees or something, that's different. I would say though, as much as you can, try to keep your cold exposure to either before you train or like later in the day, just because muscle protein synthesis is a state your body turns on once you've trained. And it's shown in the data that cold plunges can blunt muscle protein synthesis, which it's not like life or death. You're still going to make results. But again, if you wanted to optimize everything, the timing can be something you focus on too.
Love it. Okay.
All right. Rapid fire real quick. Restaurants we should be eating at. Cane's, yes or no?
No.
McDonald's.
No, yeah.
Subway,
Maybe.
Chipotle,
Yes.
Panera.
Yes.
All right, there you guys go. I'll meet up Panera and Chipotle.
And if you have a Sweet Green in your area, go to Sweet Green, because Sweet Green is the bomb.
I'm gonna look it up now because I live in Orange County, so there's got to be one around here.
Yeah, Sweet Green is if you while you're traveling, if you can find a Sweet Green, you'll be good.
Sweet. Well, there it is, folks. Fraser said it all, from a rocky beginning in New Zealand. I'm assuming you're a little overweight at one time, then you got yourself in shape. Went through some mental illnesses, went through some substance abuse, and here he is, Chris Daughtry's, strength coach, and man, he's doing it all, right, Rafa?
Yeah, and I don't want to just say he's a little bit fit, guys. Go to his Instagram. This dude is shredded. I mean, like Fraser's like model, like beyond like ripped. I'm like, what the hell? So,
oh, you're making me blush, dude. You're making me blush.
I think you are, man. But no, we appreciate you being on the show, man.
Hang on real quick, Ralph. I went to his Instagram right now and I feel like ashamed of myself. I'm going to have to go work out right now. So Fraser, thanks for the inspiration, bro.
That's the whole point, man. I try to put stuff out there that kind of motivates people to be like, man, like I want to do that. I need to do that. So like I post in my stories every day the stuff that I do because I see people, it rubs off on them.
Yeah.
You know, and that to me is freaking cool. When I see people like doing the stuff that I'm doing and it's rubbing off, man, that like lights me up. So guys, have at it.
There you go. Yeah, I just felt bad at myself going to your page right now, so I'm gonna have to. Yeah, well, check it. Everything is going to be in the show notes. Fraser, I appreciate you for being here, man. This has been one of my favorite.
Thank you, guys.
Something I truly care about. Rafa cares about his health as well. Yeah, man. Thanks for the wealth of knowledge and all the information.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure, guys.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for coming on, man. This was absolutely amazing. So we'll see ya.
You're welcome. Cool. See you guys.